not about politics, it's about football.
This is a simple game.
We're going to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. We're just going to play football, really.
How good of a football player are you?
I just get in and try to spin it. That's all.
I just love the game.
It really is the best time of the year.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to It's Just Football. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Mike Renner joining you guys on Wednesday edition of the show, which means it's all about the draft. We're taking a look at Mike Renner's most recent 2023 NFL draft. You've had a lot of updates over the last couple of weeks. You updated the big board, you updated the positional rankings. Now you put it all into a mock, and we're going to get to go over it. How you feeling, my friend?
Feeling good. It's pretty much draft season. I think next Friday,
it's fully draft season. Come
when
on.
I head out to Vegas for the Shrine Bowl, then it will be officially, in my opinion, draft season.
Speaking of the Shrine Bowl, we're going to have the Director of Football Ops, Eric Galco, from the Shrine Bowl here with us this morning. We're going to get to talk to him about some of the players that Mike's going to go out and see in person. And we're obviously going to see through social media clips because this is my favorite time of the year. All-Star Bowl season, Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, the timeline is just flooded with all these one-on-one drills that maybe they're translatable, maybe they're not. I'm still going to ooh and ah and retweet and like it. So it's just that is my favorite time of the year. We're going to refresh the timeline as well. We're going to get to some bets. But yeah, I'm excited to get into this one. Shrine Bowl's got a handful of really, really nice players this year that I think are going to stand out a lot.
I agree. I think right now, I believe there's 5 guys heading to the Shrine Bowl, maybe 6. That are top 100 players in the PFF draft.
Hell yeah.
Board, so.
Love to hear that. So we're going to ask Eric all about that stuff. You guys can do it as well. Shout out to everybody who's watching the show live. Appreciate you guys getting in on it and enjoying the show with us. Shout out to Grafting Diamonds, who was our chat champ from yesterday. Gets to represent the chat today. All the chat's opinions as we go through Mike's mock draft and either give it the thumbs up or the thumbs down. Let's get the production portal guys here in on the show. Quinn, Saab, Eli, how we feeling this morning, fellas?
Good, man. I'm excited to see who you have the Bengals taken because I'm not going to lie, haven't looked at it yet.
Well, not a company man.
Be a surprise.
Not a company man.
Surprise you. Nice Carhartt beanie. You trying to step on Eli Apple's toes here?
I am. Yeah, it's $600 Carhartt.
I was like, why are you complimenting that? And I was like, oh, because of the drip or skip segment.
Yeah, I was going to say clarify because we were talking about that in our chat, but we called it out on the show. If you watch drip or skip, I don't even know what you would call it, the floral jacket that Eli
full
Apple
suit. No, it's not even just a jacket. It's just like the full suit.
It's a Carhartt collaboration. Because I think, Mike, you said, is that Carhartt? And I was thinking there's no way that Carhartt, like working man's clothing,
I was going to say,
it pumped that out, but they did.
It blows my mind that Carhartt's turned into like a fashionable brand because I grew up in a small town, middle of nowhere, Illinois. Any like town we'd go to play like basketball, the gym would be filled with brown Carhartt jackets because they'd come straight from like farming and come and watch the basketball game that night. It was wild scene.
I grew up in Florida, and I've never heard of the brand.
I was going to say, what Carhartt even is.
I don't even know what it is. What's our question of the day to start us off here?
Last time, hold on, I flubbed that. Starting over. I don't have it in front of me.
Read it.
I'm going to play the intro again.
Welcome into It's Just Football. No, just kidding.
Every quarterback in this, starting in the divisional round, is under 30 years of age. When is the last time that happened?
Oh,
great question.
Young guns.
Great question. All 8 quarterbacks in the divisional round are under the age of 30 years old. When is the last time all 8 starting quarterbacks in the divisional round have been under the age of 30?
There's like no way I'm ever going to think of it. So like
Brady
again, so either 15 years ago or try to think of years where Brady wasn't in the divisional round. So I don't think he was in the divisional round last year.
It wasn't in the divisional round in what was it? What's the year he got hurt?
2 years ago, Rodgers was too. So I think we have to go the year he got hurt, 08.
Oh, 08.
Back that far?
I was going to say 09, but I didn't think it was 09.
Oh, so he would have been under 30 then too, right? So 15 years ago.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like it's got to be
the last time we have to go back that far because
right.
Last year Rodgers was in. 2 years ago, I don't think he made it, but Rodgers was also in again. He did make it. And 3 years ago he did in 2019, but Rodgers was in then also.
Because we already had a question today of like
how many
times has Tom Brady not made the playoffs, and it wasn't that many.
So 08, possibly. Who else was in 08?
Logie says 04-05. TJ says 1979. Nathan says 1984. Why Big Jordan says just guess a year.
The chat seems to know. The chat
give
seems
you
to
a
have seen
hint.
the answer to this one.
It's in our lifetime.
Okay.
So it's not 1974.
The chat seems to know, so I wonder if they
04, 05.
I wonder if they saw it on Twitter. They're saying 04-05, but we can, I guess, think about that at the end of the show, even if it is 04 and 05. That's an interesting one. It's a good question, though. I like it. All right, so let's refresh the timeline a little bit here. Let's get to a couple of these social clips that we've seen over the last couple of days, and just show them to you guys because we want to have either a good laugh or a good reaction. We start with Jim Harbaugh. The news came out that Jim Harbaugh was staying at Michigan. He's not going to take an NFL job this offseason, and he's already back at Michigan putting in work, baby. You got to see this clip. This man doesn't even have time to change into the gym clothes. Look at our guy. Look at him with the farmer's walk out here, Mike. The shoulders are right. This man's trying to become a trap machine. This guy watched the movie Warrior last night, was inspired by how Tom Hardy looked like the Hunchback. This is what he's searching for. This is what he's going for. This is why you come back to Michigan. Underrated movie, very underrated movie, I agree.
Jim Harbaugh working out in plain clothes. I'll watch every single video of it. Every single one. Him squatting at a kid's high school. Every single time. That's a college shirt. He's got a belt on.
Hey.
Not a lifting belt.
Listen, every trip to the gym's a business trip. You know what I'm saying? You got to dress appropriately.
I will say I am a fan of just working out in whatever clothes I'm wearing at the given moment. If I'm lifting, because you don't need to be, like if you're like running, maybe you need clothes that are workout appropriate. But if I'm just lifting, I'll wear sandals.
See, I can't do that.
Jeans.
I can't do that. I like getting in the mindset of like I'm going to the gym.
Well, I'm not going to do it like at a public gym, but like in my apartment gym or a hotel gym. I'll just go rip it up. Plain clothes.
I don't know. Maybe I've lifted in jeans once when I desperately needed it, but nah, I like to change. I like to change clothes.
If somebody snaps a pic of Mike working out in jeans, we'll put it on the show.
we will put it on the show. Okay, next one. Flight attendant digs on the Las Vegas Raiders. You just got to hear this one. I can't even explain.
Unfortunately, due to the storms that are going through Vegas, the Vegas Raiders Stadium has been turned into a tornado relief center for the next 36 hours. Yeah, apparently touchdowns rarely ever happen there.
Oh no.
Was this Southwest?
That was a sassy flight attendant.
Was it Southwest?
I don't know.
Southwest, I can't be really taking digs at people right now. That's a little, might need to hold up the mirror to Southwest, but that was a good one. I do like it.
That's like one of those jokes that I unfortunately hope that he doesn't say about every like city that he goes to. That feels like one of those where it's like every city he goes to, touchdowns don't happen there.
Well, I mean, you can't say it about like Kansas City.
I know, true, but like
something like that.
It feels like it's
maybe
fine.
Only the appropriate cities. Maybe that person is a good judge of football teams. Maybe they've got good self-awareness about it.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, speaking of good self-awareness, maybe this is bad self-awareness. This guy in a Chargers jersey, I don't know if you saw this one, Mike. He thought his team was coasting. After 27-7, after that lead, my man went and took a nap.
Oh.
Didn't end up well for him when he woke up. I'll tell you that. His friend wakes him up. He went to sleep. The full context here is that this person went to sleep when the score was 27-7. It was over. And he wakes up, and the team loses by 1.
That's fantastic. That reminds me, this isn't actually the same story, but one time in high school, we had a lock-in at my high school.
Nice.
And
classic.
So we stayed up all night, came back, and that was like a Saturday night. Come back home, and I tell my parents, it was the Packers playing the Lions. Tell my parents, all right, just wake me up noon, because I went to bed at like 8 a.m. or something. Wake me up at noon for the game. I slept through the entire game. My parents didn't fucking wake me up. I was so mad at my parents, and they lost that game. I couldn't believe it.
Wait, was it a playoff game or regular
No, it was
season?
a regular season game.
They're not going to wake you up for a regular season
Are
game.
you kidding me? I was so upset. I still remember to this day. Obviously.
Clearly. You got some trauma you got to work out here, bud. All right, last one. Good transition, speaking of trauma. Joey Bosa, still not happy. Not happy about how that Chargers-Jaguars game ended. And unfortunately, he was a big reason why it ended the way that it did. He had some choice words to say later in the week about this one.
I need to be more accountable for my actions, obviously, but it's a heated game. I think there just needs to be more accountability on, if I say something to them, I get a $40,000 fine, but if they blow a call that ruins an entire team's season, they're probably back in the locker room after the game like, got that, yeah, got him. 15 yards, what a loser. I guarantee it. That's what they're fucking talking. I need to be.
What a loser.
Do you guarantee that's what they're talking about, Mike?
Maybe, but dude, Joey Bosa, he sounds like a barbell come to life.
Dude, he's a caveman.
The ultimate meathead. Anytime you say, I need to be more accountable, but, sounds like you're not being more accountable then. Sounds like you're still blaming the refs, Joey.
Right.
It was pretty embarrassing, though, that Brandon Staley just let that occur, that he could throw a tantrum on the sidelines the way he did with, that's your team leader. That's a little concerning.
Did he not go in after that? I'm pretty sure Joey Bosa didn't. Okay. I'm pretty sure he didn't go in the game after that. Now, I don't know if it was because when he was standing on the sideline and the rest of the game was going on, I was saying, did he crack his helmet? Can he, literally not go back in the game? I don't really understand because he didn't. At least I believe that he didn't. But just a very strange scenario. Bosa obviously did not handle it correctly. Not sure the refs were getting off the field, going back to the locker room like, hell yeah, we got that Bosa dude. We got him. But
they don't have it out for you. They're just incompetent. All right? No one's trying out to get you here. It's a difficult fucking game to ref. That's what it is.
That's true. That's very true. That is true. Let's get into some prospects. It is a draft-filled Wednesday episode. And with that, before we get to your mock draft, we have our special guest that we talked about at the top of the show, the one and only Eric Galko. He is the director of football ops for the Shrine Bowl, and of course, a good friend of ours as well. Eric, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
I am doing fantastic. Fantastic. We're a week away from players arriving at the Shrine Bowl out in Las Vegas, and I couldn't be more excited.
You're also a week away from Mike Renner himself being at the Shrine Bowl, and I'm
Dangerous.
excited. Mike in Vegas.
I don't know if I'm going to be at the Shrine Bowl, but I'll be in Vegas.
You'll be in Vegas. No, you need to show up and at least represent a little bit. Put the sunglasses on if you need to. But Eric, you obviously put on such a great event there at the Shrine Bowl. It's one of the premier events that we have in the football calendar. I just wanted to ask you about how the last year has been. It was so awesome being in that event last year and getting to see all those players up close and personal. You guys having the practices at some local stadiums as well as in the Raiders Stadium as well. So just what's this last year been like? Prepping for this event once again, having these conversations with teams, and then getting a handful of really great players that I'm excited to see in Vegas next week.
Yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun to kind of let players in the industry know kind of, hey, we're in Vegas, which is pretty cool. We're at the Allegiant Stadium, which is one of them, if not the nicest stadium in the NFL. We've got 2 NFL coaching staffs this year coaching the Shrine Bowl, the Falcons and the Patriots. So a lot of cool stuff happening. And I try to make sure these players know that along with this being a job interview with every NFL team, it's also an all-star game in Las Vegas, which is pretty fun. And these guys have a great time in a week of practice as well, too. So trying to balance making sure it's a work environment for these guys, but also making sure that players, agents, NFL personnel, and Mike Renners of the world are having fun in Vegas during the week's practice too.
You don't have to worry about that.
That one's going to happen regardless.
But you guys have a loaded class here this year. 7 guys on the PFF top 100. Zay Flowers, Jalen Cropper, Kobe Turner, Keandre Coburn, Moro Ojomo, Travius Hodges-Tomlinson, Jair Brown. Which of those 7 guys do we need to be talking about more heading into next week?
There's probably more guys we can add off that list. And I think that the top guy, I think most NFL teams have come in. I've seen enough teams' boards to say, hey, this guy's the top guy at the Shrine Bowl from NFL team grade so far. That's Zay Flowers at Boston College. I think he is firmly going to be a first-round pick. The question's going to be how high. And the two comparisons I've got most frequently with Zay have been Deshaun Jackson in terms of his ability to track the ball deep for a small receiver, which, as you guys know, is pretty rare. A lot of guys think they have that, but in the NFL don't always have that. And then the Jalen Waddle. He's not quite as fast as Jalen Waddle, maybe, but he'll get close to it. But I think we've seen what Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill can do, not just as screen guys, bubble guys, etc., but also just stretching defenses vertically. So if you put those two players together, that's what Zay makes up. And the last piece on Zay, and talked to an executive the other day about this who made this great point. Zay didn't have a great offense around him at Boston College this year and still got separation as a small receiver. He's learned how to get through difficult situations. I think he'll show that at the week of practice from the Shrine Bowl. He'll take care of business at the Combine, but I think he'll leave the Shrine Bowl as a clear first-round pick and maybe an early one.
Yeah, and an all-star event like the Shrine Bowl is perfect for a guy like Zay Flowers. I agree. He is going to dominate social media with all the clips that people are going to be able to put out there. Everybody likes to talk about quarterbacks, so let's talk about one that I'm going to have my eye on for sure. Aiden O'Connell from Purdue. He is a guy who I've watched a ton over the last couple of years, and he's a guy that I continually go back to, and I'm like, man, I like what I see from this dude. It's been a little up and down for Purdue, but I love kind of the baseline of traits that Aiden O'Connell has. Talk to me about O'Connell and what people can look forward to seeing next couple weeks.
Yeah, I think his eval is pretty easy. It's basically Jimmy Garoppolo. I think he's a little bit stronger arm. I think he's maybe not quite as quick a release, but very similar in terms of how he can win as a quarterback early in his NFL career as Jimmy Garoppolo did. They have the same private quarterback coach, Jeff Christensen, a lot of similarities in how they do things. But I think Aiden's a quarterback, and we can talk about a lot of the top quarterbacks in this draft, Bryce Young, C.J. Stroud, Will Levis, Anthony Richardson, etc. There's not many, if any, of those guys that if I'm a team, I can go to bed knowing, hey, Aiden's not going to lose me any games next year. And he might do a lot more than that. I think we've seen in the NFL, hey, if you have a quarterback who's going to throw passes on time, accurately, and not make mistakes, you can maybe go to the Super Bowl like the Niners are with my guy Brock Purdy. So I think Aiden really shows where NFL teams are headed in terms of quarterback evaluation. I think he's going to clearly be a top 100 pick. The question is, how can he use the Shrine Bowl, the Combine, the interview process, which he'll kill, to be a top 2-round draft pick.
Let's talk about one Brock Purdy, because he was a Shrine Bowl player last year and has been the talk of the NFL over the past 2 months. What did you see from him and your time around him as a quarterback last year, and did you see any of this coming at all?
No, obviously, I'm not going to be like who was it, Bill Polian about Tom Brady knew it the whole time. Right? I'm not going to be one of those. But I will say what I learned from Brock a year ago was, one, he showed that, hey, even though he played 4+ years at Iowa State, he could still get better. There's a great story that Connor Orton in Sports Illustrated about his kind of increase of velocity as a passer during the draft process, which you think sometimes, hey, 3-4-year starters are tapped out. Brock showed that wasn't the case, and he was very efficient, calm, nothing bothered him. First time I talked to Brock on the phone, he was taking notes about like travel plans. Like he was locked in and taking advantage of this draft process. The first time I talked to him, and he was unfazed all in practice, which we've seen for the Niners. But I think we've seen that, hey, you don't have to be this 6'5" elite talent to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. You can manage an offense, make the plays when you have to. And Brock did that at the Shrine Bowl, at the Combine, in his workout. So I'm not saying Brock Purdy was a slam dunk at the Shrine Bowl. He earned his draft pick, and the Niners were there in full at the Shrine Bowl a year ago. But this year, guys like Dorian Thompson-Robinson of UCLA, a little bit similar background, right? 4-year starter at a major program, has seen some stuff on defenses going against him. He can kind of use that experience, plus getting better, be a good NFL quarterback as well.
I want to go back to one of the top 100 guys that we've got here on our big board that's coming to the event, Moro Ojomo from Texas. Now, I think that events like the Shrine Bowl are great for kind of seeing where guys maybe fit best, right? In Texas's system, they had him a little bit all over the place, but in the NFL, maybe they'll want him a little bit more at a certain home. Do they want him to lose a little bit of weight, be more of an edge rusher? They don't want him to gain a little bit of weight, be more of an interior guy. What did you see from him? Is there any early inkling of like how he might be used at the Shrine Bowl, how they're going to kind of figure that out and answer those questions with a guy who has a lot of talent, but maybe a lot of people would say is a tweener just because of his measurables?
Well, first of all, I think when you see him up close at the Shrine Bowl, he's going to be one of the biggest, like, oh my God, who is that human being over there? Like, he'll be that kind of built, upper body, lower body, arms, legs. Like, he looks like a long-time NFL player just right off the bus. But I think for Moro, it's fascinating because they used such a good rotation at Texas a year ago. He was working with Keandre Coburn coming to the Shrine Bowl, to Andre Sweat, another top 100 pick who we invited to the Shrine Bowl, and he went back to school to kind of increase his draft stock for next year as well, too. So we haven't really seen Moro be an every snap defensive lineman. I think talking with teams, they like him at multiple spots. And I always tell players, are you going to be a tweener, which you could play multiple spots at the same time and in the same rotation, or in neither when you can't play either. I think Morrow's going to show in a week of practice he can play a 1, a 3, a 4, a 5-eye situationally too, and he's prepared to kind of go against all of our centers, guards, and tackles in practice. And he'll be working with the Atlanta Falcons staff along with his teammates Keandre Coburn, and they're a great fit for that Falcons scheme as well.
Who's the guy we have not brought up yet that I should keep my eyes peeled for next weekend?
Well, Mike, I know he wasn't in your top 10 tight ends list a long time ago. Luke Schoonmaker of Michigan, who I think has a good chance to be the top tight end taken from any All-Star game this year, if not a slam dunk to be so. He is as complete as a blocker from a Y alignment. He shows ability to stretch the seam, to be a corner route runner. He's a really safe, reliable hands catcher that can make plays in the middle of the field too. NFL teams are incredibly excited about Luke Schoonmaker, and he'll be there along with his teammate Jake Moody, who'll be maybe the highest kicker drafted in some time. I think both Michigan guys are going to be among the top players of their position drafted in the 2023 draft.
You know I can't give love to a Michigan guy, though. That's
I know you can.
That's why he had to do it for you.
Yeah.
That's why he purposefully went after you and took a dig. Because he had to do it. Eric, you're the absolute best, man. Enjoy it when everybody kind of gets down to Vegas. I know that this is kind of a culmination of just so many weeks, months, hours put into this incredible event that you put on every year. So we appreciate you taking a little bit of time to preview it here with us. And I'm excited to see what happens next week, man. Enjoy it.
Yes, sir. Thanks, guys.
All right, Eric Galko. Man, it is. You talked at the top of the show. Yeah, it's kind of draft season. When we start talking Shrine Bowl, Senior Bowl, these All-Star circuits, man, that's truly when draft season really begins.
And I will have to say, compared to the Shrine Bowl when it was in like a field in Tampa, no hate on Tampa.
Whoa.
But it was the venue compared to then Allegiant Stadium, the UNLV facilities, night and day.
Listen, you're not going to attack my early roots of scouting. You're not going to do it.
I love Tampa.
You're not going to do it. Two random high school fields is where the Senior Bowl used to be, and now it's at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. So look, even as somebody who grew up in the St. Pete, Tampa area, I can safely say that that's an upgrade for them. Want to do some mock draft talk?
Let's do it. Let's mock a draft.
All right, we're going over to the touchscreen for our mock draft. I'm going to try to get out of this chair and not break it because I kind of broke it earlier this morning. A little bit. But it's all right. We're moving on here. Mike, you recently put out a mock draft last week? Last week, right?
Yeah.
At the end of last week, updating the mock draft, updating the big board, everything, and make sure you guys are up to date, up to speed as we get into these all-star circuits. So we're going to break it down here on this show. Mm-hmm. Oh, I like that you purposely put the beautiful graphic there to start things out.
Yes, sir.
But you've got some exciting stuff at the very top.
A trade.
You got a different team. Now, normally, how early do you do trades in mocks? Because I normally don't do trades in mocks until March. I feel like it's almost pointless. But with Chicago at 1, it feels almost disingenuous to not do that. Do you agree?
That's why. I won't. There's the only trade I did in this mock, because then after that, you need to see basically free agency. You need to see trades, because obviously pick trades have become the wave in the NFL. There's probably going to be a number of first-round picks traded for players before we even get to this draft. So it doesn't really make sense. But when you have a team who doesn't need a quarterback, realistically, drafting number 1 overall with a quarterback deserving of the number 1 overall pick, that's just begging for a trade to happen. So I have the Colts moving up for a number of reasons. One, that they were within striking distance. You're at number 4 overall is where they're sitting right now.
Yep.
It allows them to not have to give up a ton of draft capital excess. And then from the Bears' perspective, we've talked about how it's Will Anderson, Jalen Carter. Will Anderson, Jalen Carter. You want one of those two if you're the Chicago Bears. If you go down any further in the draft, say I'm tipping some picks, but say to the Las Vegas Raiders, to the Carolina Panthers, you can kiss your hopes of getting those two guys goodbye. But if you go down to number 4, we believe the Texans are still going to be pigeonholed into a quarterback to where you're going to get one of those two then. So I think it makes sense from both perspectives. That's the most likely trade candidate by far.
It feels like that's the way that you would want to go. It feels like if there's going to be a swap, that's the cleanest. But I want to ask you about the Houston Texans. Not about their pick yet. We'll get into the pick. You have them taking Will Levis at 2. How much of a threat is Houston to do a pick swap at number 1? Because you mentioned you don't want to go past 4, but you can still almost keep things within your own control if you just move down 1 spot to number 2. What do you feel about that?
I think it makes sense from the Texans if they really fall in love with one of these guys. Obviously, we say, minor difference at the quarterback position, still more than, far more than any other position can recoup in terms of value. But I will say it would be difficult for me to envision the Houston Texans giving up draft capital and basically admitting we fucked up in week 18. That's basically that pick that they give up is a Hail Mary from Davis Mills. You know, like that's what you gave up in that play. I just can't see the Texans admitting that. Now maybe you do, but that just seems like they're gonna get laughed at if they do.
There's going to be a lot of back and forth in the minds of the Houston Texans brass on whether or not they should really be all in on doing that. But I do agree that is an element of it that is an interesting one. So look, you got Bryce Young going number 1 overall. You have Will Levis going number 2. So you've got 2 quarterbacks off the board here to start the draft. Talk to me about Bryce going number 1, and then ultimately about Will Levis going number 2, as opposed to a C.J. Stroud, perhaps even an Anthony Richardson, somebody like that.
Yeah, I'm going to continue to mock him number 1 because he's the best quarterback prospect until I hear from someone in the league that they undoubtedly have Will Levis higher or C.J. Stroud higher. I'm just going to, because independently, watching all 3 of those guys, I don't see how you can have, from a football playing perspective, anyone else number 1. The only thing that you worry about is the size. The only thing. So at the end of the day, that's going to tip scales for me to Bryce Young, again, until I hear otherwise.
So is that like a similar situation with Trayvon Walker last year, where it was almost like, okay, Trayvon Walker's a lot further down the edge rush ranking, but there came a point to when we were doing mock drafts where it's like, if we don't have Trayvon Walker at 1, the rest of it doesn't matter. You can sit there and kind of like put your foot in the ground and say, I'm not going to do it, but...
Well, it was like Aiden was, I don't want to say so obvious, but every single draft board that you saw from the media, from anyone, had Aiden number 1. But if they hadn't tipped it already, if the Jacksonville Jaguars hadn't said it and weren't like, and if Aiden didn't know already, well then shit, it probably wasn't going to be Aiden.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
All right, so you got Will Levis at 2. You're carrying the flag for Will Levis here. Talk to us about it.
I don't think I'm carrying the flag. I think this is truthfully where he ends up going, number 1 or number 2, because that's the kind of athlete, that's the tools he has. We're going to keep hammering it home. And for people, I know a lot of people have asked, what's the difference between Will Levis and Anthony Richardson? It's just the closeness with which they're able to step in and play on an NFL football field. Like Anthony Richardson, I would worry about throwing out year 1. And maybe even like year 2. Like it's gonna take him a while. He's played very little football. He is still very inconsistent with a lot of the things you want a quarterback to be consistent with. And now while he shows it, it's still like you don't want a guy to be learning on the fly in the NFL. Whereas Will Levis has played for 2 NFL offense coordinators. He can handle tight pockets. Mm-hmm. He can step in and operate an NFL offense. Like for as much as there's some aspects of his game that are quote unquote projects, I don't think it's the ability to handle an NFL offense. So he'll step in, and day 1, you're putting him as a starter. And I think that's something that a lot of teams will be appealing, and especially someone like the Houston Texans where you don't have other options. They're not going to go out and sign one. They're not going to go out and trade for one. And I think Texans fans would be pissed if they're throwing out Davis Mills again next year. So to me, that's very appealing then if you're drafting someone like Will Levis that he can play right away.
Now, is there any thought to, because someone brought this up to me the other day, Texans have the number 2 overall pick. They also have the number 12 overall pick. We've talked about how Will Anderson and Jalen Carter are in a tier of their own. Mm-hmm. Do you take one of those guys at 2 and then think about at number 12 moving up, being prepared to move up for whatever quarterback falls? Or do you say, hey, you need a quarterback, got to go get the quarterback? What's your thoughts there?
I think it's the latter. It's need a quarterback, get the quarterback. There's rarely a time where you have identical evals on enough guys to justify that. And even sitting at number 12, you say, make the play to move up. Well, shit, it takes 2 to tango. You may not be able to. And then you can't risk the chance of sitting there holding your dick at the end of the day.
Incredible imagery, Mike.
Yeah.
One of a kind draft analysis. Will Anderson, Jalen Carter here. You have Will Anderson going first. Mm-hmm. Is this kind of just in mocks we'll flip it, or what?
It truthfully
Or do you really believe that Will Anderson is very much the guy that's going to go first?
It's going to be eye of the beholder, this one, the debate between Will Anderson and Jalen Carter. But right now, I just think the need at edge for the Arizona Cardinals, like a pass rusher, that is big enough that's where they go. It's just, depending on who you ask, maybe the more valuable position. It's so close that, truthfully, that one, flip them, who cares? So you're going to get a good player.
We've talked about these guys a couple of times. Obviously, a really great athlete, Miles Murphy, getting to be an edge rusher for the Seattle Seahawks. They desperately need it. Detroit Lions, Brian Brzee, getting an interior defensive lineman to really help out that defensive line. If you want to say something, go ahead.
Well, just the reason I have Brzee this high, I think Miles Murphy's he's the freak in this class that's going to go high based off of, like the Trayvon Walker comp is going to be there. But Brzee, in the Detroit Lions, why I have them going DT here is because I think he's going to get pushed up boards because after Jalen Carter, this is it. There's not another defensive tackle that offers that, which is high-end athleticism, high-end production, that you feel good about making an impact at the NFL level. So if you're the Detroit Lions, and obviously that qualifies as a need for you, your second first-round pick, which you do have, you're not going to find another guy like Brazil. Whereas if you're looking at corner here, or say like a Christian Gonzalez, there's another corner going to be sitting there. It's a deep corner class. But the D tackle class, it's those two, massive tier, in my opinion.
No, it's a good thought process. Vegas Raiders, you do have them taking a quarterback. You've got them taking quarterback 3 off the board, and it is C.J. Stroud. How in do you feel Vegas is going to be for a quarterback at number 7?
And obviously, this is one where free agency, trades, pre-draft is going to determine what ultimately happens with the Raiders. Because if they are left out in the cold, in the quarterback swapping that always happens every offseason now, seemingly, if they are left, they are going to be drafting quarterback. They are going to be one of the teams, whether it's C.J. Stroud, whether it's Anthony Richardson, they are going to be in that mix. But if not, obviously, still TBD on what their plan is. I would imagine at the moment the plan is to go for a veteran. I think that's where this roster is built. It's what we talked about on the Crystal Ball segment. But I do think that their need is so desperate that should they not, or if they're getting a 1-year rental like a Tom Brady, this still could make sense.
Tyree Wilson, going number 8 to the Atlanta Falcons, so we're going defense there. We're not tempted by the quarterback. Anthony Richardson going to the Carolina Panthers. We'll talk about that in a second. But this is still the avenue that you believe that the Falcons are going to go?
Yeah, so I just think Anthony Richardson's the last one on the board here. If they trade up and if C.J. Stroud's on the board, by all means you can go that route. But Desmond Ridder showed some things towards the end of the season, and if you're drafting Anthony Richardson, he's not starting right away. You have another guy who's just 2 or 3 years down the road. I'm not necessarily sure you can afford that if you're the Atlanta Falcons and Coach Arthur Smith. So get a guy that is a redshirt senior, willing and able to make an impact right away on your roster, and that's Tyree Wilson.
All right. So Panthers then. I don't want to say settling for Anthony Richardson because this is still in the top 10 here, but getting QB4 in this class. One, do you think there's a chance that Richardson could go even higher? Do you think that there are teams in the NFL that could really convince themselves of the ceiling that he has both with his arms and his legs? And then ultimately, what do you think the range is for him right now? What do you think a realistic spot for him would be? You have him going 9, clearly, but what do you think the range is?
It'd be hard for me to see him going much higher, just with like the teams that are drafting there. Okay. And I think the range starts here, goes all the way down to, I'd say, the mid-20s, but he's not coming out after 1 year as a starter because he got a third-round grade, day 2 grade from the NFL, right? Like, he's coming out because he got some assurance that he's going to be a top 25 pick in this class.
You would think. Yeah, you would definitely think that.
And for the Panthers, I would say,
go ahead.
I think they bring back Sam Darnold. I think they bring him back on the cheap because they know what they're getting, and then that allows you the flexibility to get a project, quote unquote, at the quarterback position.
10, Philadelphia Eagles. Before we round out the top 10, do a little recap here. You got them taking Brian Branch. The Eagles are always a very interesting team because it feels like it's the team that has everything right now. So what do they do with a top 10 overall pick? You've got them going secondary here with Brian Branch.
And I think it's something they don't have right now on that roster. Well, I kind of have C.J. Gardner-Johnson, but he doesn't really play the slot. But it's an elite slot guy. If you add him to James Bradbury and Darius Slay on the outside, an elite slot corner like Brian Branch, who, as you see here, 90.7 run defense grade, 86.4 coverage grade. Like, he was incredible if you flip on the tape from him at Alabama this past fall. And the best tackler in the draft. Missed 4 tackles his entire collegiate career. I just think that guy is, maybe he doesn't have the tools of a Kyle Hamilton that you typically think of a safety going this high, but on the football field, it's reminiscent of like a Jamal Adams without the Jamal Adams kind of size. Jamal Adams didn't test off the charts coming out of LSU, but you just watch the tape and you're like, okay, that guy's gonna be awesome. That's how I feel about Brian Branch. And so maybe 10's a little rich, but again, it's kind of because the team fit is a team ready to win now that is missing kind of that in their defense.
All right, I've done a terrible job when we've gone over mock drafts of recapping things midway through the mock since people join the show at different times. So for those people who might be new over the last couple of minutes, this is what the top 10 looked like before we get outside the top 10. Colts going Bryce Young, Texans Will Levis, Cardinals going Will Anderson, Bears Jalen Carter, Seahawks Miles Murphy, Lions Brian Brzee, Raiders C.J. Stroud, Falcons Tyree Wilson, Panthers got Anthony Richardson, and Brian Branch at number 10 to the Philadelphia Eagles. We've got 4 quarterbacks off the board in the top 10. So to start things off,
feels good.
Outside the top 10, you got that off your chest. Now you don't have to worry about quarterbacks here for the rest of this mock draft.
Well, I mean, it feels good just like have guys that are able to draft.
That's true too.
Yeah.
Even though there's definitely pros and cons to a lot of these guys, the pros are so much fun to talk about with where they could potentially go in a mock draft. Number 11 at Tennessee, you got them going Paris Johnson Jr. This is offensive tackle 1 now off the board. You pretty confident in Paris Johnson being a OT1 type?
I think so. He's I've said it before, he's like the guy that ticks those physical boxes wholesale in this class. And now may not have the production of, say, an Andrew Thomas coming out, a Tristan Wirfs coming out, or a Penei Sewell, Rashawn Slater. I'm not putting him in that conversation. I'd even put him kind of like in that tier, or maybe slightly behind that tier of guys we saw come out last year in Ike Ekwonu, Charles Cross, Evan Neal. But the guys that succeed, the guys that are elite tackles in the NFL look like Paris Johnson. You know, they're 6'6", they're 310, they have 34-inch arms, and they move like he does. So it's only a matter of time, because only 1 year of starting at left tackle, because obviously Nicolas Petit-Frere, who he joined in Tennessee, was starting at left tackle last year while he was at right guard. So big fan of Paris Johnson's game. And in a weak tackle class, I think that's only going to make it so that they get drafted higher rather than lower.
Quinn, I forgot to ask you this when we got outside of the top 10. Any early thoughts from the chat? Quarterback landing spots, anything like that? The chat went in on anything?
Nah, I mean, as always, there's going to be like some Anthony Richardson discourse.
Yeah.
Some folks feel it's right. Some folks think it's a little rich, but I'm kind of with you guys, especially if there's a run on quarterbacks and you need one. It's like, well, he's the last guy there.
Yeah, what do the Panthers do otherwise?
Or the free agency market and the trade market, like you said,
it's going to shake out.
Will help shake this out. But going into a mock draft, if your team needs a quarterback, it's hard to not give them a quarterback. So that's kind of where we are with that. Houston, you had them getting Will Levis at number 2, going back to the offensive well. Quentin Johnson, wide receiver 1 in this class, going number 12 here. What do you think about that connection? With
a couple big swings for the fences here with their first 2 picks, which is, you know, you're starting to rebuild. You're starting from scratch.
Right?
You gotta hit some home runs. You gotta hit some cornerstone type of pieces. And so Johnston is a project in some ways, but he's also a freak in other ways. It is a guy that is going to provide value even if he's not, never becomes this complete receiver. He reminds me of DK Metcalf in that regard, where it's like, DK, you just knew that on go balls, he was going to be a handful. He was straight up going to test you every single time. And yeah, maybe the rest of the stuff is never going to develop with him. But Quentin Johnson at 6'4", 215 with low 4.4 speed, 40-plus inch vertical is going to be a handful to get vertical. And I think it was I'm not even sure I can say it actually, but he had his GPS numbers are great. I'll just say that.
We almost got some insider information.
I was going to say I can't actually.
We almost got it.
Can't actually. But his GPS numbers are great. I'll just say that.
Okay. All right. Next offensive tackle off the board, New York Jets taking Peter Skoronski. This fit. I do want to talk about this fit. We won't go through every single pick like this, but specifically with the New York Jets, I love Paris Johnson Jr. in the New York Jets because of that versatility that he has there. Is that kind of the same thought with Peter Skoronski? Do you have that same kind of confidence that he could be an offensive tackle if Mekhi Becton doesn't happen to work out, or he could be an interior guy if Mekhi Becton does come back and plays well? Is that kind of your thought process here? What do you believe with him?
Yeah, I think he's a very versatile body type for the offensive line, whether it is tackle, whether it is guard, or whether it is center, truthfully. So I think Peter Skoronski is a good offensive lineman. He's just a very high floor lineman in this draft class, which for the New York Jets, you don't have a ton of holes. Obviously, quarterback looks like one of them, but then offensive line's probably second on the list of holes for this roster. So a guy that could fill pretty much anywhere, kind of like him and Elijah Vera Tucker, very similarly tooled guys that gives you a lot of options when guys start getting hurt. Peter Skoronski be that guy.
Devon Witherspoon, CB1 in this mock draft, going to the New England Patriots. Give us your thoughts on him.
Yeah, great cornerback class, but I think Witherspoon just feels like a Belichick pick, right? Belichick's talked about kind of his draft philosophy over the years, and it's not height, length, size, speed, whatever. It is intangibles and how guys play the game of football. And you flip on Devon Witherspoon's tape, and he plays the game of football the correct way. He is feisty, he is hard-nosed, he fills in the run game, he's a willing tackler, and he is a press man corner. I've said this stat a bunch. I'm going to keep saying it because it is insane. 113 snaps press coverage, 1 yard allowed all season long for Devon Witherspoon. That's a guy, as I wrote, who could play cornerback for Bill Belichick.
I watched his tape last night. Watched a handful of games for the first time. I'd seen him throughout the season, but this is the first time really putting him under the microscope. He can click and close maybe better than anyone I've scouted in the last 5 years.
Yeah.
It is unbelievable. unbelievable what this dude can do at cornerback, and he plays extremely confidently. So, Packers, you've got him going tight end. You got to go Michael Mayer instead of a wide receiver. Is there any other thought other than just like got to be an offensive weapon, or like are there other positions that you thought about with Green Bay that they could possibly need?
There are other positions I thought about. Edge, obviously Jared Verse coming back to school doesn't help that. I think someone like Lucas Van Ness is someone that could make it here, the Iowa defensive end who declared late in the process. But Mayer, I'll say, is just, they want that. They've been looking for that desperately in their offense, that guy. And I think when it's sitting them there in the face in the first round, I think Brian Gutekunst's company are going to pull the trigger because they use the third rounder on Sternberger. They use the third rounder on the Cincinnati fullback who doesn't even see the field. But Michael Mayer is like actually the inline blocker, receiving weapon that they've been looking for at the position that I think they'll just become enamored with.
You got back-to-back corners. Corner run is starting heavy here. Washington Commanders going Christian Gonzalez. Pittsburgh Steelers going Cam Smith. And then I'll skip down to Seattle going Keely Ringo as well. So big-time corner run. You've had 5 corners going from pick 14 to pick 20. Is this a sweet spot for corners? And then what do you think about each of these guys?
Yeah, I think this one, Christian Gonzalez, could go higher. Because he is scheme versatile. He is, to me, a guy who can play press, can play off. He has the smooth hips that you want. Is just a very sound all-around corner. So if he goes higher, it wouldn't be surprising to me, but definitely if he's there for the Commanders, they are going to be thanking their lucky stars because that's what they've been missing, right? They tried to pigeonhole William Jackson, a man corner, into a not man-heavy scheme. All of a sudden you get a guy who it doesn't really matter what you're playing. He's going to be productive. To me, Cam Smith, Pittsburgh Steelers, I know Steelers fans are probably going to want Joey Porter Jr. here. Probably going to want, the lineage. Mike Tomlin may as well. But Cam Smith just feels more like a Steeler, in my opinion, in that similar to, I don't want to say the things I said about Devin Witherspoon, but like plays the game the right way, sees the game of football at a high level, has very good instincts, and is very versatile as well, which is, I think, something that will be coveted for the Steelers defense. So can play the slot, can play outside, and great ball production. 21.4% PBU rate over the past 2 seasons.
The game that we play in every mock draft is where does Bijan Robinson go? How high does Bijan Robinson go? And here you have him go to the Detroit Lions at number 18. Thoughts? How'd you get to this point?
The Lions don't have, they have holes at corner. I will say that, but it is a deep corner class. You could maybe even get one in the second round. But Bijan Robinson behind that offensive line with obviously now Ben Johnson returning as offensive coordinator.
Yes.
Jamal Williams being a free agent. There's just a lot to like about that pairing. I think he would be used creatively there. I think his skills would be maximized. And I think it would take that offense to, it was an elite offense this year. It was a top 5 offense. It could take that offense to a level that, even with Jared Goff, could get you to a Super Bowl, in my opinion. Now, obviously not a lot of running backs I'd say that about, but Bijan is special enough to warrant this high pick.
Last one we'll talk about before we recap 11 through 20. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers taking Nolan Smith. I agree that a trench need it's going to be huge for the Buccaneers. We highlighted it on yesterday's show how the deficiency of the pass rush really goes into a lot of the deficiencies that they have on the defense overall. Really starts up front, but just your overall thoughts on Nolan Smith. He's a lighter, smaller edge rusher, but I feel like it's been very consistent that you've got him in the top 20, top 25 of first-round mock drafts.
Yeah, he's just that level of an athlete. And I think the same things we said about Trayvon Walker last year about him not getting the ability to attack as a pass rusher, they applied to a lot of the guys on Georgia's defensive line, especially Nolan Smith. Like, he was a run-first player at 235, which is crazy to say. But he had an elite run defense grade over the past 2 years before obviously tearing his pec this past season, why he missed the playoff national title game. But not an injury I'd worry about long-term in terms of affecting his play on the football field. So at that point, you're not going to find too many athletes like Nolan Smith. I'll tell you right now, 0 athletes like Nolan Smith in the second and third round.
All right, we'll recap 11 through 20 here. We had a little mini offensive line run at the top of the Tennessee Titans going Paris Johnson, Peter Skoronski going 13 to the Jets. In between that, Quentin Johnson going to the Texans, double dipping on offense here in this mock draft. Then it was a big cornerback run, starting with Devon Witherspoon at 14 to the Patriots. Packers went Michael Mayer at 15. Commanders corner, Christian Gonzalez. Steelers cornerback, Cam Smith. We then had the Bijan Robinson landing spot with the Detroit Lions at 18. Tampa Bay Buccaneers took edge rusher Nolan Smith. And then we had Keely Ringo going at number 20, another corner there to the Seattle Seahawks. So they would play Keely on one side, Tariq Woolen on the other, Kobe Bryant in the slot. That's a hell of a lot of athleticism there in that secondary in Seattle.
And size, too.
Right.
They're both
Yes.
215 pounds.
Yes.
That's insane.
Yeah, that would be a very, very unique secondary group there with those guys. All right, Jacksonville Jaguars. You got them going O'Cyrus Torrence. Is he the only interior offensive lineman in the first round?
Correct, yes.
I believe he was.
It's not a great interior offensive line class.
So is that kind of, does that certainly help him getting bumped up the board a little bit here?
I think so. And obviously, we said about Skoronski, his versatility is, why he'll be coveted highly. Probably starting at tackle, but may end up being on the interior. He's like O'Cyrus Torrence is a guard. You're not playing him at center. You're not playing him at tackle. You're playing him at guard. And I think if you are the Jacksonville Jaguars, you have to, at some point, start to, what do you call it? Eat your vegetables. Like this is a invest in not getting Trevor Lawrence killed pick.
Yes.
And O'Cyrus Torrence is the single best pure guard prospect in this class. Monster guard, 347 pounds. I actually looked this up the other day. In the last 20 years, not a single 340-plus pound guard has gone the first or second round. Torrance will be the first because he's been that good for Florida this past season.
Everybody wants to eat dessert, right? Everybody wants it. You want the flashy guy. You want the skill players. You just want to draft the guys that are just going to be exciting to draft every single year. But if you eat dessert all the time, you're going to feel sick. And that's kind of how you're going to feel when the team gets out there as well. You got to eat your vegetables. You got to draft the interior offensive lineman. I don't mean the slight interior offensive lineman. You guys know what I'm saying. You got to get big and strong. Got to eat those vegetables there. All right, Miami obviously forfeiting their pick at number 22. You got the New York Giants going Jordan Addison at 23. Ravens at 24 going Darnell Washington. And the guy I want to talk about is the guy we talked about with Eric Galko.
Yeah.
It's Zay Flowers going to the Los Angeles Chargers at 25. Talk to me about this fit here.
Yeah, Zay Flowers is just what they're missing, right? We talk about that offense and just not having separators. And I think it's time, unfortunately, for Chargers to bite the bullet and say, Keenan Allen, your contract's too much for your level of performance right now. And I think parting ways with him may be in the cards this offseason. And then it does make sense to then invest resources that you're going to free up, obviously, in free agency to go elsewhere. But in the draft, Zay Flowers is a talent you're just not going to find in free agency. You're not going to find in the second or third rounds because, as Eric Galko so eloquently put it, like, this guy's special. This guy is a special mover on a football field. He gave him comps to Jalen Waddle, and he said, I don't think he's that quite level of pure speed. But what we say about Jalen Waddle is that it's not just the pure speed that makes him so special. It's the fact that he can go laterally with the same level of quickness that he can in a straight line. That's Zay Flowers. Very excited to see him at the Shrine Bowl. And if he's there on the board for Los Angeles Chargers, they would be nuts to pass on that guy.
You got the Dallas Cowboys at 26 taking linebacker Drew Sanders. But then I want to touch on Quinn's Cincinnati Bengals here at number 27. Their offensive tackle, Anton Harrison, here in this mock draft. Is this Jonah Williams' reaction, or is it, before that? Like, what do you think about them landing on offensive tackle here?
Yeah, I think it just makes sense. Let me touch on Sanders just real quick,
go ahead,
just because I think it's very interesting fit here. Micah Parsons, obviously they moved him completely on the ball.
Right.
This gives you like what Micah Parsons was as an off-ball now still, because he is an off-ball linebacker that can rush the passer at a high level. So basically you have Micah Parsons on the ball now and a kind of Micah Parsons off the ball. I think that would just take this Cowboys front seven to an insane level.
All right.
And
I'm
then
glad you touched on that then, because that's high praise.
And then the Bengals, Anton Harrison, they can't keep rolling into the playoffs with the tackle position being as much of a liability as it is right now, and it was last year. And if you had, a tackle duo that was competent, you probably have a Super Bowl ready for the Cincinnati Bengals. So obviously, it's where I'm looking. Even if Jonah Williams does come back healthy this year, even if Lyle Collins does come back healthy next year, and is completely fine, I'm investing in the offensive tackle position because I can't let it get to the levels that it's gotten to right now. 5
QBs go in this first round mock draft. Tanner McKee is the other one. He goes to the Minnesota Vikings at number 28. Talk to me about the thought process of why you ended up going quarterback over a couple maybe other defensive positions that they could have gone with here.
I know I'm one of the few banging the table for Tanner McKee right now, but I'm telling you, come draft time, I am not going to be the only one. I can almost guarantee you that, and I can guarantee you that he is not declaring early, as a redshirt sophomore to come out and be a third or fourth round pick. I can tell you that right now. He has fans around the league. He's one of the most accurate quarterbacks in this draft class, one of the most NFL-ready quarterbacks in this draft class, obviously hailing from an NFL-style, pro-style system in Stanford that is admittedly dated, which is why his numbers very much suffered in that offense. But if you go throw for throw, he's right up there with the top guys in the class. It's just we don't really know what it's going to, reminiscent of Daniel Jones coming out of Duke for a lot of reasons, Tanner McKee, but it's just we don't know really how he's going to excel when an offense is actually giving him open throws because we've never seen it on tape. That was Daniel Jones at Duke. That's Tanner McKee at Stanford. So don't be surprised if he does rise up some draft boards and make some headway towards the first-round conversation.
You got Joey Porter Jr. at 29 to the Denver Broncos. Less about the fit here with the Broncos, and I want to talk more about Joey Porter Jr. because we've seen him in some mocks be a lot closer to the top 15, something in that area. So what are your thoughts overall on Joey Porter Jr. being down here at number 29?
See, he's just not the kind of athlete that I'm going to go to bat for as top 15 pick when corner is such an athletically driven position. So that's the worry with a guy like Joey Porter. Now, his press technique, his physicality, it's elite. Like he is as good as it gets, and he's held up well against the Ohio State receivers. Last year, obviously didn't face, guys, Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson in that game. He was tremendous. But this year didn't face maybe as tough a slate of wide receivers, and that's why he only allowed 143 yards all season. But I do think that athleticism is still going to be something that we need to see for a top 15 pick, but at this point in the draft, not an issue once you get towards the back end of the first round.
All right, well, click the wrong button. Hold on. Making sure we get back to the mock draft here. I don't even know if you guys can see this, but a little bit of movie magic here. See, just where we left off. They don't even know about it. They're coming back from break. They didn't even know.
See it.
They didn't even know what just happened behind the scenes.
Yourself.
Sorry. I'm trying to be transparent. So, another pick that I wanted to touch on. Luke Musgraves, your guy.
Oh, yeah.
Going to Kansas City Chiefs at number 31. You think he's first-round caliber guy, back end of the first-round guy, huh?
I think he might be.
Okay.
I think he might be. I'm not the only one. I think I saw Dane Brugler.
Dane also had him. Yep.
Also had him going back end of the first round. And he's a guy who, come combine time, you'll start to see it more and more because he's a low 4.5s guy. He is probably high 30-inch verticals guy. He is an athlete. You saw him on tape down the football field, like running away from safeties, running away from corners, and obviously only plays 2 games this season, gets hurt, minor knee injury that ended up taking him out for the whole season, not an ACL or anything like that, undisclosed. But yeah, Musgrave, I love the fit here too with Kansas City Chiefs because they've obviously been trying to run some more 12 personnel. They've been trying to get 2 tight ends on the field with guys like Noah Gray. Musgrave is a massive upgrade over a guy like that. And then he also gets to learn from Travis Kelce on how to be, a tight end with a similar athletic profile. He can learn from the best route runner of all time.
Last pick, it's Jackson Smith-Njigba, polarizing player. A lot of people look at Jackson Smith-Njigba, look at the production that he had last year, not this past year because he didn't play. They look at last year's 1,600 yards, 347 yards in the Rose Bowl alone, and they go, this guy's got to be wide receiver 1. How in the world is he dropping all the way to 32 with a bunch of wide receivers picked before him? What do you ultimately think about Jackson Smith-Njigba and the range that he could have when it comes to the NFL draft this April?
Yeah, of all the drafts I think I did, or of all like the hauls I got, I think I love the Eagles the most just because.
Sure, Brian Branch and Jackson Smith-Njigba.
It was because it's 2 guys who are right now impact players.
Sure.
They are about as sure of things as exist in this draft class. They're just what people would say maybe not value positions and maybe not high-end athletes, but slot is not like a high-end athletic position, whether on offense or defense. It is very much a skilled position. How well do you see the game? How well can you get open? How well can you read routes? Branch, obviously, elite at reading routes. Jack Smith-Njigba, elite at running routes. So you have that pairing that can step in and impact your roster next season for a roster that's already arguably the best in the NFL. I would be very happy if I was an Eagles fan. That was my haul.
All right, there we go. There it is, folks. Mike Renner's latest 2023 mock draft. I think we got a full screen for you where we can recap all of the picks. Started off at the top with a big-time trade with Bryce Young going to the Indianapolis Colts, not the Chicago Bears. Obviously, you guys can see the top 10 that's right there. We got 4 quarterbacks that went in the top 10. I'm not going to go off and name all of these picks here, but certainly 4 quarterbacks in the top 10 is going to make for an extremely exciting draft. Outside of the top 10, a couple of offensive linemen came off the board in Paris Johnson, Peter Skoronski, but then I think the cornerback run started. I think people talk about, hey, what is the target range for a lot of these players, especially the cornerback class? It seems like Mike believes right now the sweet spot is between 11 and 20 if you want to go get a really good one. And then we have 21 through 32 there. A lot of other wide receivers, some offensive linemen going off the board. We get in a couple linebackers as well, but there's some good players all around. I think there's argument to be made for all of these guys moving up and down the board a little bit. I think there are some fan favorites within this group, but very well done, Mike. Good mock draft. A lot of fun hauls here, my friend.
I tried my hardest. That's all that matters.
You know, that's all that matters. That's really all that matters. I mean, not really. I mean, look, if people don't read the mock, you're going to get fired. But, you could tell yourself that trying is what matters most. So let's get the good people out of here with a couple of prop bets that we like heading into the divisional round of the playoffs. Mike, who you got first? What's a prop bet that you like this weekend?
My first or my only prop bet that I like this weekend is going to be Trevor Lawrence going over 250 yards.
I looked at this one.
One. Because, I mean, let's face it, they're going to have to go toe-to-toe. I guess 251.5 now. Excuse me. Didn't mean to misspeak there. But you're going up against Patrick Mahomes. What are you going to do? Have Travis Etienne pound the rock for 20 times for 100 yards?
Yes.
Is that what's going to push you over the edge?
Football.
Is that what's going to get 30-plus to beat this Chiefs team?
Make the statement.
I don't think so.
No, you're right.
I think whatever it is, it's going to come down to Trevor Lawrence having to throw the ball at some point in the fourth quarter. And at that point, he's been one of, over the past 3 months, best quarterbacks in those situations where it's the gotta have it. They know I'm passing. We know we're passing. Still picking up first down. Trevor Lawrence has been exceptional. That's how, a guy has arrived on the scene, is when he can excel in those situations. Trevor Lawrence has. So at some point, that's going to be the case in this game, and I think Trevor's going to go over 251.5.
I looked at that one. I almost picked that one. So I do have to agree with a lot of the points that you're making and potentially seeing over 250 yards there from Trevor Lawrence. I'm going under 220 passing yards. I guess now it's 218 for one Daniel Jones. Now, this is not Daniel Jones slander. Everybody calm down out there. I just think the game's going to look a little bit different. I still think he's going to play well. But the Eagles know this team very well. They're going to play them very tight. I think it's going to be more of an even game for Daniel Jones with his arm and his legs. It's not going to be just him throwing it all over the yard. So I originally had it at 220 yards. I think that's going to be a little bit under for him. I think 200 is more of the area in which I think is going to be the target for him. I think it's going to be somewhere between 185, 205 for Daniel Jones. So I'm going under on the passing yards there for January.
I don't hate it. I mean, this Eagles defense is as sound as it gets. They're not going to give you easy layups. Now maybe I'll be proven wrong next week, but they don't give you a lot of layups that the Giants were capitalizing on against the Minnesota Vikings.
Question of the day. It seemed like the chat knew it. Early, but we'll revisit it here. 8 starting quarterbacks, all 8 starting quarterbacks for the divisional round that's coming up are under the age of 30. When's the last time this happened, that all 8 starting quarterbacks were under the age of 30? We figured it was going to have to be before Brady turned 30. Because there ain't many times that he didn't make the playoffs or the divisional round. And he is 45. So 15 years ago, I think at the very least, unless we're talking about maybe the year that he missed.
But 08, I think there was... I think we had Kurt Warner in 08, though. So,
yes.
So then probably not that year.
Was that the year? Yeah. That was the Cardinals' year they went to the Super Bowl?
I believe so.
So then that would have obviously taken that out of the equation as well.
Or was it 09?
They won. 09 is either the year that the regular season happened or the year in which they won it, technically.
No, 09 was the Saints. Saints beat the Colts, right? 09. So, it was 08. 08 was Cardinals Steelers, excuse me. All right.
04?
They say 04 or 5.
They say it's 04. Do we have the names of who the quarterbacks were? Is it 04?
I'm looking at the team. So Indy and New England, that's Young Manning, Young Brady.
Brady.
Jets was Chad Pennington, I believe.
Okay.
Right? Steelers, Young Ben.
Young Ben.
St. Louis versus Atlanta, that was Mark Bulger, and that's got to be Mike Vick, right?
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
And then Minnesota and Philly, that would be Young McNabb and Dante Culpepper.
Culpepper, right?
Yeah.
Ooh, that was young-ish McNabb, because he was what?
How old was he?
I guess that was young-ish Manning, too. So he was.
McNabb had to be 28, 29.
Yeah, they're probably
2004, 2005 was a long time ago, fellas.
Yeah.
I know. We're old.
Yeah.
We're very old.
We are not quarterbacks under the age of 30.
No.
At least I'm not.
Damn right we're not. Do we have a chat chant before we get out of here on the day?
Yes, we do. It is DT Dynasty.
Let's go.
Pull from Quinn because I was out doing the camera, so he said he had some zingers.
DT's always in the chat.
Oh yeah,
he said, and you got a lot of blowback for that Michael Mayer pick. He said it was a Homer Simpson level Homer pick.
I was in okay, I guess it was both in Notre Dame and in Green Bay. I would hate if they drafted Michael Mayer. Let me just get that off the top.
Wow.
I would not like the pick. So it's not actually. It's more of a.
So you're like reverse jinxing it.
Yeah.
You're like trying to anti-manifest it.
I'm in Brian Gutekunst's mind too deeply that I'm making picks that I myself would hate because I know I'm going to hate their pick.
Goody watches the show. Goody watches the show.
Yeah.
Shout out, Brian. Thanks for watching. Appreciate you getting in the chat, Brian. Appreciate everybody else getting in the chat. Shout out DT Dynasty. We got to make Gutekunst the chat champ one day.
Yeah.
If he just said, Brian, if you just hit send on literally one message one day, we'll make you chat champ.
Just say fun.
That's our offer to you. Shout out to everybody who watched the chat, got in on the show with us. Shout out to Eric Galco as well for joining us a little bit earlier on the show, getting us primed and ready for the Shrine Bowl, which we are going to be able to see next week. I'm so excited for that. Tomorrow.
Trivia.
What's the score? What's the score for trivia? We even or we up?
We should keep track of it.
I am not privy to that.
Come on, somebody.
I'll look it up. I'll know tomorrow.
Somebody.
I think you guys took the lead, right? I think it's 7-6.
I thought we took the lead. Right. I thought it's 7-6. We're the comeback kids right now. We were down 5-6, got to 6-6, and I think it's 6-7.
We'll have to go back and watch last week to see what we said.
Now we gotta go back and watch. But no matter what, whether we're tied or whether we're up here on this desk, ain't many trivias left. Y'all got to bring your A game tomorrow. Y'all got to try to take it from us because we're not giving it to you. But I'm looking forward to it either way. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That's Mike Renner. For everybody in the production portal, thank you guys so much for watching It's Just Football. We'll see you right here, same time tomorrow, 11 a.m. See you guys then.
It's not about politics, it's about football.
This is a simple game.
We're going to run the ball, and we're going to pass the ball. He's just going to play football, really.
How good of a football player are you?
Not just get in and try to spin it. That's all.
I just love the game.
It really is the best time of the year.